My name is Captain Elizabeth Beth Harrington, and for 18 months during the war in Afghanistan, everyone thought I was just a nurse. The other officers at Forward Operating Base Chapman called me Doc or Angel, or sometimes just the nurse from Boston because of my accent. They saw me in my scrubs carrying medical supplies, saw me treating wounded soldiers in the aid station, saw me doing exactly what army nurses do in a war zone. They had no idea that 3 nights a week, I left the base through a tunnel that didn't exist on any official map. No idea that I spoke fluent Pashto and Dari. No idea that the medical supply runs I made to nearby villages were actually intelligence gathering operations. No idea that beneath my uniform, I carried documents that could have gotten me executed if the Taliban had ever figured out who I really was. The truth is, I wasn't just a nurse. I was running one of the most sensitive intelligence operations in the entire theater. An operation so classified that even my commanding officer didn't know the full extent of what I was doing. This is the story of how I lived 2 lives in a war zone, and how one terrible night, those 2 lives collided in a way that almost destroyed everything. The operation started in December 2011, 3 months after I arrived at FOB Chapman in Khost Province. I'd been recruited by the CIA 2 years earlier, while I was still in nursing school at Boston University. A woman in a gray suit had approached me at a coffee shop near campus, shown me credentials that looked official, and asked if I'd ever considered serving my country in a different way. "You have a unique skill set," she'd said, sliding a folder across the table. "Medical training, language aptitude, you studied Arabic in college, correct? And according to your instructors, an exceptional ability to read people. We need someone who can move through Afghan communities without raising suspicion. Someone who can provide genuine medical care while gathering intelligence. Someone who can be 2 things at once." I should have said no. I should have finished my coffee, walked away, lived a normal life. But I'd always wanted to matter. Always wanted to do something that made a difference. And the truth was, the idea of being more than what people expected fascinated me. So I said yes. They trained me for 14 months. Language immersion. Cultural sensitivity. Intelligence tradecraft. How to build rapport with local informants. How to recognize Taliban operatives. How to hide documents in medical supplies. How to lie convincingly to people I cared about. And then they sent me to Afghanistan with orders to establish a network of local informants who could provide intelligence on Taliban movements, weapons caches, and planned attacks. My cover was perfect. I was Captain Beth Harrington, Army Nurse Corps, assigned to FOB Chapman to provide medical support to combat operations. Everything about that identity was real. I had genuine nursing credentials, genuine military training, a genuine service record. The only thing that wasn't genuine was the full extent of my mission. The base commander, Colonel Marcus Stone, was a career infantry officer who ran Chapman like a fortress. He was a good man, fair, competent, genuinely concerned about his soldiers, but he had no idea what I was really doing there. Neither did anyone else. For the first 3 months, I played my role perfectly. I worked 12-hour shifts in the aid station. I treated everything from combat wounds to stomach bugs to homesickness. I became part of the base community, someone soldiers trusted, someone they talked to, someone who blended into the background of military life. And at night, 3 times a week, I became someone else entirely. The tunnel was my lifeline. It had been built during the Soviet occupation, a crude passage connecting the base to a compound about half a mile away that now housed a local medical clinic. The CIA had discovered it during site surveys and decided it was perfect for covert operations. Every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, at exactly 2,300 hours, I would leave the aid station through a storage room with a false floor. I'd climb down into darkness, follow the tunnel for 20 minutes, and emerge in the basement of the clinic. There I would meet my contacts. Farah was my primary asset, a 40-year-old woman who ran a small school for girls in a village 10 kilometers from the base. She was brilliant, brave, and motivated by a fierce desire to protect her community from Taliban violence. She had 3 daughters, a husband who'd been killed by an IED, and information networks that stretched across the entire province. "The Taliban came to the mosque last night," she told me during our fourth meeting, her dark eyes serious above her headscarf. They're planning something. An attack. Soon. We sat in the clinic's tiny office, speaking in whispers. I'd brought her medical supplies. Antibiotics, bandages, vitamins for her students, and she'd brought me intelligence that would save lives. Do you know where? I asked in Pashto. The base. They're planning to hit the main gate with a vehicle bomb. 2 weeks, maybe 3. I felt my stomach drop. How certain are you? Very. My cousin's son, he's been radicalized, joined them last year. He told his mother he'd be a martyr soon. She came to me crying. I made careful notes in a code only my handlers could read, disguised as medical observations. I need more details. Timing. Who's organizing it? Where they're building the bomb? I'll find out. Farah touched my hand. But Beth, they're watching the clinic now. They know someone here has been talking to the Americans. You need to be careful. I'm always careful. She smiled sadly. No. You're brave. That's different. Over the next 6 months my network grew. Farah introduced me to others. Shopkeepers, farmers, teachers, women who wanted their children to grow up without fear. I gave them medical care, school supplies, money for their communities. They gave me intelligence that prevented 17 attacks, led to 12 weapons cache discoveries, and saved countless lives. But no one at the base knew. To them I was just Captain Harrington, the nurse who sometimes made medical supply runs to local villages. Colonel Stone would approve my convoy requests, assign me security escorts, and think he was supporting humanitarian efforts. He had no idea that while I was vaccinating children, I was also meeting with informants. While I was treating elderly villagers for chronic illnesses, I was photographing Taliban documents. While I was being just a nurse, I was running an intelligence operation that was crushing insurgent networks across the province. The deception ate at me sometimes. Like Stone. I liked the soldiers I worked with. I hated lying to them. But the work mattered. Every piece of intelligence I gathered saved American lives. Every Taliban operative we identified and captured was one less threat to the men and women I served alongside. So I kept lying. Kept living 2 lives. Kept being 2 people. Until the night everything fell apart. It was a Thursday in June, 11 months into my deployment. I just finished my shift at the aid station when my encrypted phone buzzed. A signal from my CIA handler that there was an urgent meeting. I waited until 2300 hours, then made my way to the storage room, descended into the tunnel, and headed toward the clinic. Something felt wrong the moment I emerged. The clinic was too quiet. Usually I could hear Farah moving around upstairs, preparing for our meeting. Tonight there was only silence. I drew my sidearm, a 9mm I carried concealed beneath my uniform, and moved carefully through the basement. The office door was open. Inside, Farah sat in her usual chair, her face pale with fear. Standing behind her was a Taliban fighter with an AK-47. "Captain Harrington," he said in accented English. "Please sit down. We have much to discuss." My training kicked in. I assessed the situation in seconds, one hostile, armed finger on the trigger. Farah was crying silently, her hands bound. The man was young, maybe 25, with a dark beard and eyes that had seen too much violence. "Let her go," I said calmly. "This is between us." "Is it?" He smiled without humor. "For months, this woman has been betraying her people, selling information to the Americans. And you are not just a nurse, are you?" My heart was hammering, but I kept my voice steady. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie." He pressed the rifle against Farah's head. "We know everything. Your meetings, your network, your tunnel. We've been watching for weeks, waiting for the right moment." I calculated my options. I could try to shoot him, but he'd kill Farah before I could draw. I could run, but I'd be abandoning my asset and compromising the entire operation. I could call for backup, but my encrypted phone only worked in specific locations and this wasn't one of them. I was trapped. What do you want? Yes. Information. You will tell me the names of everyone who has helped you. Every informant. Every contact. Every source. He leaned forward. Or this traitor dies, and then we will hunt down her daughters and kill them too. Farah made a small sound of terror. I looked at her. This brave woman who'd risked everything to protect her community, who'd trusted me, who'd become something close to a friend, and I made a decision. Okay, I said. I'll tell you everything. Just let her go first. You think I'm stupid? He laughed. You tell me first. Then maybe I let her live. Then we have a problem, I said. Because I'm not telling you anything until she's safe. We stared at each other across the small room. I could see him calculating, weighing his options. He had the tactical advantage, but he also needed what I knew. Information was the only currency that mattered. You have 10 seconds, he said. Or I shoot her. Wait, Farah started to say, but he struck her across the face with the rifle butt. Something snapped inside me. I'd spent 18 months being cautious, playing it safe, following protocols. 18 months of careful lies and calculated risks. But watching him hurt this woman who'd trusted me, who'd put her life on the line for what she believed in. I wasn't a spy anymore. I was a soldier. I drew my sidearm and fired in one smooth motion. The gunshot was deafening in the small room. The Taliban fighter dropped, a red bloom spreading across his chest. He tried to raise his rifle, but I fired again and he collapsed. For a moment, everything was silent except for the ringing in my ears. Then Farah was sobbing, and I was cutting her bonds, and we were both shaking as reality crashed down around us. We have to go, I said urgently. Now. More could be coming. My daughters. I'll protect them. Promise. But we have to move. I helped her up, checked the fighter to make sure he was dead, and led her toward the tunnel entrance. But as we reached the basement stairs, I heard voices outside. Multiple men. Shouting in Pashto. They'd brought backup. We were surrounded. I pulled Farah back into the basement and locked the door. It wouldn't hold long, but it would buy us a few minutes. There's another way out, Farah whispered, her voice shaking. Through the storage room. A window to the alley. We ran. Behind us, I heard the basement door splinter as they kicked it in. I fired 2 shots through the door blindly, heard someone scream, kept running. The storage room was tiny, cluttered with old medical equipment. The window was small, barely large enough for a person, and covered with iron bars. I can't fit through that, I said. But I can. Farah was already climbing up. I'll go, create a distraction. You use the tunnel. No. Listen to me. Her eyes were fierce. You saved my life. You've saved this whole community. I will not let you die here. Before I could stop her, she squeezed through the window bars, thinner than I'd realized, and dropped into the alley. I heard her running, heard her shouting, heard the Taliban fighters chase after her. She just sacrificed herself to save me. I ran back to the tunnel entrance, descended into darkness, and started moving as fast as I could. Behind me, I heard them discover the tunnel, heard them coming after me. I was halfway back to the base when my phone finally got signal. I called the emergency number, a direct line to my handler. Crossbow is compromised, I said, using my operational codename. Network is blown. Multiple hostiles in pursuit. Need immediate extraction. Copy, came the calm reply. Initiating emergency protocol. Get to the base. We're sending help. I ran harder than I'd ever run in my life. When I finally emerged in the storage room beneath the aid station, I was covered in dirt, my lungs burning, my hands shaking. I climbed up, locked the false floor behind me, and tried to compose myself. Then I walked out into the main aid station like nothing had happened. Sergeant Miller, the night duty medic, looked up from his magazine. Hey, document thought you'd already headed to your hooch. Couldn't sleep, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Figured I'd catch up on some paperwork. He nodded and went back to reading. I sat at my desk, opened a random patient file, and stared at it without seeing anything. My mind was racing. Farah was out there, possibly captured or killed. My network was compromised. The Taliban knew about the tunnel, knew about my real mission, knew everything. And I couldn't tell anyone. 15 minutes later, Colonel Stone burst into the aid station. "Captain Harrington." His face was grim. "I need you to come with me. Now." My blood turned to ice. Had they figured it out? Had the Taliban talked? Was I about to be arrested? I followed him to his office, where 3 men in civilian clothes were waiting. I recognized one of them, my handler, using the alias Mr. Carter. "Colonel Stone," Carter said calmly, "I need to speak with Captain Harrington privately. It's a matter of national security." Stone looked between us, confusion and suspicion warring on his face. "What the hell is going on?" "I'll brief you shortly, sir. But right now, I need you to trust me." Stone stared at me. "Captain." I met his eyes and saw the moment he realized I'd been lying to him for 18 months. Saw the hurt and betrayal flash across his face. "Sir," I said quietly, "I'm sorry." He turned and walked out without another word. Carter closed the door and turned to me. "Tell me everything." So I did. The ambush at the clinic. The firefight. Farah's sacrifice. The tunnel compromise. Everything. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "You did the right thing. All of it. Farah. We have a team tracking her location now. She's alive. In custody, but alive." Relief flooded through me. "Thank God. We're extracting you tonight," Carter continued. "The operation is over. Your cover is blown, and it's too dangerous for you to stay." "What about my network? The others who helped me?" "We're moving them to safe locations. Everyone will be protected." I nodded, numb. 18 months of work ended in one night. "What happens now?" "You'll be debriefed, reassigned, and your service record will be amended to reflect your actual contributions. Everything you've done will be classified for the next 25 years, but you have my word, it mattered. You saved hundreds of lives, Captain. Maybe thousands. Does that include the lives of the people who trusted me?" My voice broke. "The soldiers here who thought I was just their nurse." Carter's expression softened. "What you did required sacrifice. From you and from others. That's the nature of this work. It's never clean. It's never easy. But it's necessary." "I want to talk to Colonel Stone," I said. "Before I leave. I owe him that much." "That's not protocol." "I don't care about protocol. I lied to that man for 18 months. I worked alongside him, earned his trust, and then betrayed it. The least I can do is look him in the eye and explain why." Carter studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. 30 minutes. That's all I can give you." Stone was in his quarters, staring at a map on the wall when I knocked. "Come in," he said without turning around. I entered and closed the door behind me. We stood in silence for a moment. "How much of it was real?" he asked finally. "All of it," I said. "I am a nurse. I did care about the soldiers here. I did my job to the best of my ability every single day. That was never a lie. But you were also a spy. I was also an intelligence officer running an operation that saved lives. American lives. Your soldiers' lives." Took a breath. "In the past 18 months, my network provided intelligence that prevented 17 attacks on this base and others. 17 times that American soldiers would have died if not for the information I gathered. That was real too." He turned to face me. His eyes were hard, but there was something else there too. Understanding, maybe. Or at least the beginning of it. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you didn't have the security clearance. Because the operation required total compartmentalization. Because I chose my words carefully. Because sometimes the people who do the hardest jobs are the ones no one can know about. And Farah, the woman who helped you. She was braver than any soldier I've ever met. She risked her life and her daughter's lives because she believed in something bigger than herself. She's a hero, Colonel. Just like your men." Stone was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something I didn't expect. He held out his hand. "Thank you for your service, Captain Harrington." Both the part one knew about and the part one didn't. I shook his hand, tears threatening to spill over. "Thank you, sir, for being the kind of commander worth lying to protect." They extracted me that night, flew me out on a helicopter under the cover of darkness, just another medical personnel transfer on the official logs. I never returned to Afghanistan. Instead, I spent 3 months being debriefed, analyzing everything I'd learned, helping to protect the network I'd built. Farah and her daughters were relocated to Germany with new identities. 7 other key informants were also moved to safety. The tunnel was sealed. The operation was closed. The war moved on. I was reassigned to Walter Reed Medical Center in Washington, D.C., where I worked as a nurse for 3 more years before leaving the military. I got my intelligence medal in a closed-door ceremony with 6 people present. It sits in a box in my closet, next to my nursing pins and my deployment patch. I never told anyone about what I really did in Afghanistan. Not my family. Not my friends. Not the nurses I work with now at Boston General, who think I'm just a trauma nurse with military experience. They have no idea I spent 18 months living 2 lives. That I ran intelligence operations while treating wounded soldiers. That I saved lives in ways that can never be publicly acknowledged. Sometimes that bothers me. Sometimes I want to tell people, want them to know that women can be more than what they appear, that nurses can be warriors, that the most important battles are often fought by people no one will ever thank. But mostly I'm at peace with it. 'Cause I know the truth. I know what I did mattered. I know that somewhere in the world, Farah's daughters are safe and growing up without fear. I know that soldiers I'll never meet are alive because of intelligence I gathered. I know that I was part of something bigger than myself. Last year I got a letter. No return address, postmarked from Germany. Inside was a single sentence in handwriting I recognized. "Thank you for giving my daughters a future. F." I cried for an hour after reading it. My name is Elizabeth Harrington. I'm 42 years old, and I work as a trauma nurse in Boston. For 18 months, I ran a classified intelligence operation behind enemy lines while everyone thought I was just a nurse. They were wrong. I was never just anything. And neither are any of the women who serve in silence, who fight battles no one sees, who carry secrets that save lives. This is our story. And now, finally, I can tell it.